It's the first ever hat-trick classic at Group 1 level. Racing, Thrilling Boris anticipated nicely, goes out towards the lead with Fantastic Set and Absent Minded and Timmy Trumpet up around the outside. Berridale lads round the first quarter around. Electron James, Fantastic Set, copter check there. Bulldozer is back and Blazing Spirit has lasted. Away goes Boris. Thrilling Boris in front of Timmy Trumpet. It's a Karen Walsh Quinella in the first ever hat-trick classic. Thrilling Boris, brilliant. Ready to run hat-trick classic. Alan Ablett looking to get up, has.
Hello everybody, good evening and welcome into Dog Zone, where we are going Group 1 racing yet again, the first one of 2019. It is the Hat-Trick Classic, and what a final we have assembled for the running on Friday evening. It is going to be an absolute ripper. Joining us here on Dog Zone once again is Philippa Morris. Pip, last year's running of the Hat-Trick Classic was an absolute nail biter and went down to the wire. Alan Ablett getting up over Big Time Paddy by an absolute lip, and this year it could be just as good.
Yes, I was lucky enough to be there and actually catch him and bring him back to scale, Alan Ablett, and yes, it was just scenes on that occasion. And I think you're right, Andy, there's so many variables to this race, and I do think for me it was very hard to choose the winner, so I can't wait for Friday night.
It's going to be an absolute ripper, there is no doubt about that. It will be race number 10 on the card. It's due to get underway at 9:08 p.m. Here's a look at the market. It'll see Nature's Gent as favourite, $3.20. We've got a host of runners there on the second and third line. BLAZIN, AUDREY, Avenger Bale, DYNA Dave, Thrilling Talks there as well, and obviously Trojan Horse. Philippa, Nature's Gent comes up favourite. He's got the draw to get the job done. Might not get it all his own way, but he certainly deserves to be favourite with the draw.
Yes, you said it all, Andy. It's the draw that puts him right into the race. $3.20. Probably wouldn't want him much shorter than that, but it shows what he can do when he gets on the speed. He's unbeaten as far as places and wins there off box number 1. So yes, a very deserved favourite, but the rest of the field, like you can see, very even here. And the rest of the runners around that $6 quote with a couple at 5s.
Any value outside of him that you can see in that market, Philippa? I didn't mind the $6 around BLAZIN AUDREY after her heat win, if she can keep her mind on the job.
Yes, I think you're right there, Andy, and maybe a little bit around the likes of DYNA Dave if he was to get the right run. But other than that, I don't think there's a lot in this market. Like I say, it really is going to depend what happens most times in that first bend at Wanganui, and there's a lot of dogs here that like to go in, out, and a lot with it on the speed. So that's what makes it tricky for me.
Time to go runner by runner now through the field for the Hat-Trick Classic, starting off, of course, with box number 1 for our favourite Nature's Gent. 9 starts with the red rug upon his back, 5 wins and 4 minor placings. Philippa, he's come up with the draw. He's got the right dogs around him, and there would be no surprise if he made it another Group 1 win for the team.
No, certainly wouldn't. You'd think Angela Toon would be very happy when the fields come out. He comes up with that draw, like you say, brings him right into this race. He is the deserved favourite, and that was a really good run last weekend behind Avenger Bale. He made up a heap of ground from a box that he didn't like, Andy.
This is a look at him winning the Spee on Rose. This is at Group 1 level. He's off box number 3, and he's got some of his rivals in against him here. Obviously, DYNA MONTY off the 1, who does like to get away from the rail. And Philippa, the way this field's drawn, DYNA MONTY could greatly aid Nature's Gent's chances into the turn. Yes,
I think you're right there, Andy. And if he gets out in front like this, he has an incredible run home last week. I don't think they're going to pig him back. You're going to have a very strong dog that's going to need to do so. So yes, I think, just looking how the race may pan out, for me, I think he is going to get the run of the race.
Consistently runs home and around the 11.50 mark. Last week in the heat he got home in 11.51, and thank you to the team at Form Pro for getting these sectionals through. Philippa, 3 starts ago he broke the 30-second barrier. If he can get out somewhere near the early lead and run home in that 11.50 mark, it's hard to see dogs getting anywhere near him, really.
Yes, I think you're right, Andy. The only dog for me that I'd be worried about would be, say, DYNA Dave. If he was right on his tail, he's the only one I've seen him run down the likes of Avenger Bale and Tom T when they've been flying. But any other dog in that field, they just don't seem to be that strong, Andy, over the 520 metres.
Box number 2 comes up for the Marcy Flip Prepared Idle Dude, and he's doing a really good job at the moment since stepping up to the 520 metres. He's another one who's greatly aided by the draw, Philippa. Last week his first split was just fair. He got home in 11.55. So again, if he can stay handy enough, he is half a chance of getting into the money.
He certainly is. He's a dog that just seems to have one speed, Andy, and he just keeps on plodding. We did see in that race there behind Nature's Gent, he did actually run over the top of DYNA Monty, so he does just keep plodding along. And I think you're right, he comes up with the draw that maybe if he can follow Nature's Gent around and get a nice position in the running, still could be a chance for Marcy Flip.
2 starts ago, he won in a 30 and 23. Philippa, do you think that's a good enough time to see him winning a race like this, or is he a place-only kind of chance?
For me, he's a place-only kind of chance, Andy. I think there would have to be a lot of trouble. He just doesn't have that early speed to lead out into these kind of races, and he just seems to kind of keep plodding along and pass those dogs that are getting a little bit tired. And he certainly deserves to be in the final, Andy. I just can't put him on top for me.
I think the dog who comes up with a really good draw as well as BLAZIN Audrey, outside of Nature's Gent, I think she draws the best. She was really good in her heat. Philippa, she did do things a little bit awkwardly up the home straight, but with the way her sectionals played out, 4.99 to the back in 18.44, home in 11.51 for a 29 and 95. With the run she's going to get, she's $6 in this final. I've actually got her on top. If she keeps her mind on the job, gee, she's going to be tough to beat.
Yeah, she is. That's the only reason I didn't put her on top though, Andy. It's her mind, and she just makes me query little things. And I did go back and watch a lot of her races. She doesn't really tend to go hard down to the rail, so that's a plus for her. And like you say, I do think if she's going to be up handy, she's going to be right in this. It's just her head for me. I've put her in for second. I think off last week's run, that was huge. I think if she is trailing Nature's Gent, she may not be able to get him. But yes, I just certainly think she's a major player in this field. And if she can jump out with DYNA Monty drawn on her outside, he's going to move out. I think she's going to get a nice run into that first bend.
Yeah, she certainly will. So that was her winning her heat. Thrilling Talk led up there, and he was the dog in box number 2. He was just gathered in late by her, and Dinah Dave getting home late in the piece. Philippa, what chance BLAZIN Audrey ends up in front round the first turn? Obviously there's some speed out wide with dogs like Trojan Horse and Thrilling Talk, but they may have to do a little bit of work. If she can replicate her early split from that heat, what chance that she ends up in front round the first turn and they're all chasing her?
I'd say she's got about an 80% chance, Andy. The only thing with me is I think maybe if she walks out a little bit, or she even does jump on the speed. Trojan Horse does like to jump. He's got a lot of speed, but he heads down to the rail. And for me, if he's heading down and DYNA Monty wants out, and if she tries to move out a little bit on that bend, I've kind of worked this out a little bit. I'm thinking, is there going to be a little bit of carnage? Is she going to get checked? And that's why I put Nature's Gent on top instead of her. But yes, I think you're right. Maybe about an 80% chance.
Box number 4 comes up for one of 3 Craig Roberts prepared runners in this final, and it is, of course, DYNA Monty. He does hold the key to this race for some of these greyhounds, Philippa. We're about to have a look at some head-on footage of him, and he does like to get away from the rail. Now, the first one we're going to have a look at is him winning his heat at the Spion Rose. Now, the dog in the 8 here is Trojan Horse. He's in the yellow rug of box number 5. You see him take a big right-hand step here in a minute and smack straight into the side of Trojan Horse. And Philippa, with Trojan Horse drawn right next to him in this final, there's every chance this could happen again.
Yes, this is exactly what I think is going to happen, Andy. You could just see him there. He just wants out, Trojan Horse wants in, and they've drawn next to each other once again. So I think you're right. This is going to lend the likes of BLAZIN Audrey, going to give her maybe that clear run in. It just depends, on my opinion, who's going to have the most bumping ability. Will Trojan Horse push him in, or will DYNA Monty have the more strength to push him out? And if that's the case, I think it's going to lend BLAZIN Audrey and the likes of Idle Dude and Nature's Gent, giving them the best run into that first bend.
Yeah, the first split's going to be really important here, especially for Trojan Horse, who comes up with box number 5 for this final. Been in really good form of late, and she's been picking the jump and flying. Philippa, 4.96 early, she clocked in her heat. She got to the back in 18 and 39. Now, the key to that is she was over a length faster than DYNA Monty early, and as we've just seen off that video, that's going to be key to her chances come Friday night.
It certainly will. That's the question mark for me. It's going to be what DYNA Monty does, because we've seen in the heat when he had box 5, he flew off the lids as well. So if these two jump on par, I think this is going to be the major player in the field, Andy. If it doesn't happen and Trojan Horse jumps out like we see here and DYNA Monty was slow, maybe he won't get touched at all and he'll lead to the first bend. That's what I said. There's so many variables to this race. It could change completion, completely, but I do see these two causing trouble with each other.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting into that first turn. So this is her winning her heat last week. She's in the blue rug of box number 4. DYNA Monty's in the pink of the 8, and Idle Dudes out wide are in the 3. And Philippa, the first split obviously to the winning post, so she's been over a length faster than Monty to that point. Now, the question here is how far she can be in front of him at box rise, because Monty does get away from the rail straight away. And as you know, in greyhounds, it's really hard to be a length in front of a dog as soon as they leave the mat, so that's key for her. Yeah,
she would have to absolutely take a flyer, Andy, and we've seen DYNA Monty do that. I can't see it happening. I really can see these two maybe causing a bit of trouble. I also think there's a dog that might be heading across from the outside as well, and if these guys all check each other, it really does leave the likes of Nature's Gent and of course Blazing Audrey free. We know that Idle Dude's a little bit slower away, so even him, he's probably going to benefit just getting a nice slice up the rail.
Box number 6 for the second of the Craig Roberts team is Avenger Bale. He was successful in his heat for this. He clocked a 30 and 19. He run home in 11.40. And Philippa, we know his staying credentials. The last part of his race certainly strong. If he can get some clear air at them early, then he's another one with a chance in this final.
Yes, he was the one that really I struggled to put him in the race, Andy. I didn't know what to do. I loved him at futures at $12, and when he won the heat like he did last week, you know, I just think he can do it again off box number 6. My only question with him, I would have had him on top, but he's got Thrilling Talk drawn on his outside, and Thrilling Talk, if you watch all his races when he's drawn out wide, he just cuts straight across to the rail, and you either want Thrilling Talk to out-jump Avenger Bale, or Avenger Bale needs to fly, because I can see him getting checked, and he's the type of dog, Andy, that doesn't really like to be hampered in a race.
So this is him winning his heat last week. Avenger Bale, green rug, box number 6. One of the reserves, Big Time Lily, led them up here off box number 2, and getting home late in the piece there up the fence from box number 8 was obviously Nature's Gent. Philippa, that race there really key for 2 reasons. One, obviously Avenger Bale getting home as strong as he did, but the second one there was seeing Nature's Gent get down to the fence and charging home late. He's going to have to do no work to get to the rail in this final, Nature's Gent, and that's why we've got him so high in the pecking order.
Yes, Nature's Gent was actually the eye-catching run for me, Andy, in that race, because we just know he doesn't really love box 8, and for him to get the right run and, like you say, pick his way through, it's not usually the type of racing he does. He usually jumps to the front, and he's a dog that you want to back when he is in front, but this time he was quite an eye-catching run for me, so you're right, Nature's Gent with that box number 1 brings him into it. But yes, I think Avenger Bale, like I say, he's still a chance in this race. I wouldn't outrule him. If you've taken him at $12 futures, you know, you're certainly still a chance, because if the dog jumps and leads, Andy, or he gets the right run, we know how strong he is, and he's certainly a fast dog as well.
The T-Rail-based Karen Walsh will make her way to Wanganui on Friday evening with Thrilling Talk, who comes up with an awkward draw, box number 7. Philippa, he was able to lead his heat. He went 5 seconds early, got to the back in 18.27, which was the fastest of all of the heats. The impressive thing about that, his mid-split, 13.27, again, thanks to Form Pro for getting these through to us. Gee, that's about 2 or 3 lengths faster than anything else in this field. His mid-section is nothing short of phenomenal.
No, he's very fast, Andy, that's for sure. My only query with him, he does tend to paddle that last, 150 metres or so over the 520 metres. Most of his form comes over the 457, and we've seen Cameo Sid run him down there at the Monaco, and then of course he got run down by Blazing Audrey last week. So yes, that's my only thing with Thrilling Talk, and out of all of his starts, he has been drawn 10 times down by the rail from 16 starts. So he is, most times when I've watched him from those outside draws, Andy, he heads hard left, and when he has before, he's actually got beaten. So I actually left him out for me.
Yeah, he's certainly the interesting runner of the field. His run home in the heat, 11 and 73, which was the slowest of all 8 of these finalists. So he is going to need to get a break on them. And Philippa, much like Trojan Horse, he does have DYNA Monty to contend with. So yeah, it's going to come down to the jump, and if he can get across dogs like DYNA Monty into the turn.
Yes, and that's what I was wondering. I think maybe if he tries to come across and Avenger Bale jumps with him, he's going to have to come through Avenger Bale, and then you've got the likes, like you say, of DYNA Monty pushing Trojan Horse out. So yes, it's a very questionable one for me. I think if Thrilling Talk was drawn closer, and I certainly would have had him in the mix, it's the draw for me, Andy, that's putting me off.
Box number 8 for the final runner for the Craig Roberts team, and DYNA Dave. He is a notoriously slow beginner. We saw it again in the heat for this. Philippa, he clocked a 5.20 early to the first split. That's around a length slower than the next slowest, which was Nature's Gent in a 5.13. So really hard at Group 1 level to make ground on these. He run home in 11.44. So even his run home wasn't the quickest of all of them, he really does have a job in front of him.
He does, Andy, and the silly thing for me, I would say he's the best dog in the field. I will actually say that he is. I think with the dogs that he's beaten in the past and the times that he run, he is. But as you can see here, he's always slow off the lids. And Hat-Trick, I just don't think you can do that. Addington, yes, I think he'd still make up ground. We've seen him do it in the past. But Hat-Trick here, it's such a tight little corner, and times like that he can't. Here, off a box number 6, I should say, he actually did catch them and managed to win. But that's the question with DYNA Dave is, yes, getting around. The only thing I did think, Andy, was with the likes of Thrilling Talk going straight across to the rail and those other dogs causing carnage, I thought maybe, for once, DYNA Dave walking out could be his favour. He could get a swoop around them, and we know how strong he is. He may not have clocked the times last week, but if he gets the right run and doesn't really have to pick his way through, I think he could be in it. I mean, he's had box 8 5 times, 2 wins and 2 minor placings.
He's certainly Group 1 capable. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Of course, he was second in the New Zealand Cup behind Bago Bye-Bye, and Philippa his run, and that was nothing short of phenomenal. We didn't really see many dogs take ground off Bago when he was here in New Zealand, and Dave was one of the few who did.
Yes, that's right. And the race that really sticks in my mind, Andy, is that back on the 31st of May, Avenger Bale was out in front by quite a bit, and DYNA Dave picked him up. That shows the speed that he has got. I just couldn't leave him out. I tried, I really did, but I just know how of a class animal he is. And if he gets the right run, like I say, if this was at Addington, he would have been on top for me, but I've still got him in the mix.
So here's another look at the market. Nature's Gent favourite, 3.20. BLAZIN AUDREY certainly a little bit of value for mine, around that $6 quote. If these dogs were to replicate what they did in the heats, then she certainly does look a big chance with the run she's going to get. But Philippa Morris, we're going to come back to you. 4 numbers on a bit of paper. Where are you leaning in the Hat-Trick Classic?
I've put Nature's Gent on top, almost forgot my memory there. Then I've put BLAZIN AUDREY in, and then DYNA Dave, and then I've actually put Idle Dude in. I think he can run into 4th. I think he's going to get the right position in the race, Andy.
Thank you for that. I've marked them down, same 2 numbers, but in a different order on top, 3-1. I just think BLAZIN AUDREY is going to get a run here. Obviously, her head needs to be in the right spot, but gee, if she was to clear them early and get on the lure, she's going to give them something to chase for a long way. And with MONTY to her outside, she could get the opportunity to do just that. And behind them, the one Nature's Gent, he's obviously got the best draw of all of them, and he's certainly a chance of putting another Group 1 in the bin. And behind them was a bit of a toss-up for me, to be honest. I threw Thrilling Talk and hoping he can get across them and hold on for a place, and then Avenger Bale if he does miss it. But certainly Idle Dude a chance, as is DYNA Dave, if they can get the right kind of run into the final. Well, that's a look at the Hat-Trick Classic. We're going to head to a quick break here now on Dog Zone. On the other side, we'll have a look through the New Zealand Racing Series Sprint Final. Welcome back into Dog Zone. Before we get into the New Zealand Racing Series Sprint Final, we do need to mention the rather sad passing of Ron Todd. He was one of the 3 members of the Opawa Racing Limited. He unfortunately passed away last Wednesday after suffering a heart attack. The Opawa Racing Limited, a name synonymous with greyhound racing, Philippa, and Ron was a third of that. And if you just go on grnz.co.nz, have a scroll through group and feature races, you can see just how successful the Opawa Racing has been, and that success won't stop now, but certainly they've lost a big member of the team.
They certainly have, Andy. It's a great loss, and yes, if you go onto the GRNZ website too, there's a great write-up about him and all that he achieved and what he did through the Opawa Racing team as well, and it's a very sad loss, so yes, condolences with the family and friends.
Yes, condolences to the family. It's certainly very sad, and obviously to friends in Opawa Racing Limited there with Robin and Graham, and I'm sure he will be sadly missed. We're going to have a look at the New Zealand Racing Series Sprint Final now. This will be race number 9 on Friday evening. This will precede the running of the Group 1. It goes at 8:39. Big Time Wendell come up favourite, 160. Gee, Philippa, she's been in super form since dropping back in grade, but box 1 not ideal for her, and $1.60 just seems short enough for mine.
Yes, it's very short priced, Andy. I thought maybe $2 I'd take for Big Time Wendy. You're right, it's just a draw, but I still have her on top. She was phenomenal last week in the heats, and I just think if she can show that immense box speed again, they won't be catching her.
Heat number 1 for the New Zealand Racing Series was taken out by Big Time MJ. Had box number 1 on this occasion in the red rug. Was able to clock splits there of 7:01 home and 10:51 for a 17:52. Philippa, not always the quickest into stride and comes up with an awkward draw, so things look pretty tough for him in this final.
Yes, I think you're right, Andy. It's the draw for me. He had obviously the right draw here on this occasion. Loves box number 1. Doesn't come up with the right draw in the final. We'll find it tricky, I think, to get across some good dogs drawn closer in, Andy. So yes, not for me.
Second to him was Big Time Blue, of course, was fresh up. Comes into the second up with a slightly improved draw, Philippa, but he probably needs to improve a little bit off last week to get past a couple of his faster kennel mates.
Yes, I think you're right. I don't think he had the right draw. However, box 8 on that first fresh up run was quite slow away and then wanted to head down to the rail. I think he has a better draw this time, Andy, and I've actually got him in the mix. I do like Big Time Blue. I think he shows a bit of an improvement. Maybe not on top, but I think he'll be in the mix.
Second heat was taken out by the Marcy Flip prepared Idle Dude, and he was able to get, Idle Nifty, and he was able to get the job done pretty impressively. He was able to clock a 6.90 early, which was the winning of the race, home in 10.68 for a 17.58. And Philippa, this bloke one you were pretty big on last week, and you got him home at $9, and if he can replicate that first split, he's certainly half a chance in this final.
Yes, he certainly is, Andy. I think it helped, obviously, having the hot favourite Big Time Pete walk out like he did. Idle Nifty jump away, and if he does it again like you say, I think he's well drawn in box number 3 to be right in the mix, and he's a tidy little dog there for Marcy Flip.
Second to him in the heat was Big Time Autumn. She was the slowest run home of all the 8 finalists in a 10.79. Again, thank you to Form Pro for these splits. And Philippa, an awkward draw for her. And again, it's hard to see her getting into the final.
Yes, it certainly is. I think she's going to have her work cut out for her, Andy. Little dog trying to get across some of those animals. You know, we know what it's like in the sprints as well. It's quite hard from out there. And yeah, she's not for me either.
Big Time Caleb, a double-priced winner in the third heat for the New Zealand Racing Series. He had box number 7 on this occasion. One of his more fancied kennel mates was Big Time Basher, who finished into second. Philippa, Caleb was good here, 6.96 early, fastest run home of the finalist in a 10.46, which was just quicker than Wendell for 17.42. And he comes up with a pretty nice draw as long as he can miss Wendell in the early parts of the race.
Yeah, I actually left him out, Andy. I just wasn't quite sure about the draw, and I think maybe a couple of other dogs will just out-jump him and maybe just outrun him. So, yeah, not for me on that run.
Yeah, 6.96 he was able to clock early, and that, of course, he has been to Manawatu on Monday, so that's the question for me. He did have a 457-metre race where he was second to Big Time Rod, so lining up for his third race in a week and a 450 in between for him. The fourth and final heat was taken out by Big Time Wendell. She was the fastest qualifier in a 17.35. Philippa, she certainly wins her races early, 6.87 early, home in 10.48, just slower than the fastest there of Big Time Caleb for 17.35. She too raced at the Manawatu on Monday. She wasn't as fast early there, but she was still able to lead. Box 1 not perfect for her, and she will try and push away from the rail, but gee, if she can pick the jump and get out in front and run a 17.35, well, it's race over for the rest of them.
Certainly is. That's why she's on top for me, Andy. I do think you're right. I think the price is maybe a little bit short, but we see her every week in these 520-metre races where she leads out, and then last week coming back to the sprints, flying out like that. If she does it again, yes, she's probably not ideally drawn in box number 1, but I can still see her if she shows that box speed, she'll get where she wants to go into the track, and she's going to be too hard to run past.
Second to her in that heat was Big Time Eve. I think she's the toughest for Wendell to beat. She's drawn directly outside of Big Time Basher, and he does like to get down toward the rail. And Big Time Eve could just be the dog out there smoking a pipe, minding her own business, getting the nice little run. 7:01 home and 10:50 for 17 and 51 was her time in running second, and I think she's probably the biggest beneficiary out of these box draws for the New Zealand Racing Series Sprint Final. But it's time to head back to Philippa. 4 numbers, Pip, who are you with? Obviously Wendell on top off what you were just saying.
Yes, I've put Wendell on top, and then of course I've gone on with the Idle Nifty once again. Couldn't leave him out. Then I've put Big Time Blue in. I think he can improve off that run, and yes, I'm with you. Big Time Eve in for 4th for me.
I've put Big Time Eve on top solely around the prices. I just think $1.60 is a little bit too short for Wendell, so I want to shop for a little bit of value. I thought Eve was probably the hardest to beat, just the way they've drawn. As I said, outside of Bash is certainly where she should want to be into that first turn, and she should get every opportunity. Over the one Big Time Wendell, you can't leave her out. She's an absolute speed demon. If she clocks anywhere near what she did last week in the heat, then she's going to be out in front. The 3 Idle Nifty for Marcy Flip, again, was good last week, clocked a handy enough first split. Key to his chances is what Wendell does off box rise, and the other one I put in was the 2 Big Time Caleb. Again, key to him is again what Wendell does early. If he can miss her, I think he's some kind of chance of running into the placings. Well, last week we had a massive list of tips from myself. Philippa had 4, I had about 134. I've ended up with 5 winners, very win or bust. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but we ended up getting 5 home. Robson at a very short price, but he was impressive. Rumble Soldier for the same team, getting the job done. Kiakatu Fever, tough night, just getting up in the shadows of the posters, did Tommy the Jet. Philippa, you got your best bet home, Now So Ellen, and you got a little bit of value there with Idle Nifty at $9.
Yes, Now So Ellen ended up being a very short price, but I suppose you could have multiplied him up, and yes, Idle Nifty at $9. I think that was a good price, and like I said, Andy got a bit lucky with the favourite walking out, but yes, Idle Nifty, pretty happy with how he did last week.
You know what greyhound racing's like, Pip? Every now and then you need an ounce of luck, though, and you got that with Pete missing away. But, gee, Idle Nifty was good, though.
Yeah, certainly was, Andy. Made all the luck himself, didn't he? Jumped off the lids and pretty much was race over once he got home. I must say I was out watching it and was screaming him home. So, yes, $9, nice price for him.
So we have another week in front of us. Philippa, where are you going this week? Obviously, not as much time to go through things with some late fields coming out, and Auckland not out yet with the late close with Wellington anniversary. But here's where you're heading.
Yes, I do like DYNA Wesland. She's back from her Australian campaign. All thoughts is that she's trialling well, and she's back at Addington. So yes, I've got her on top. She probably won't be paying a lot, but she's definitely a very exciting dog. Broken Penniless, think he comes up with the right draw out of Addington as well. In race number 5, he was so unlucky last week and does like it out wide. The Improver, To the Nail, is another dog that doesn't really had much luck lately. Gets the right draw, I think, in the right race too at Ascot Park on Friday. The Downgrader, Zipping Cobra at Wanganui, of course, was contesting these Group 1 heats just 2 starts ago, comes back into a C3 and really think he should be winning. Extra Distance suits Roman Nozar. If you watch his races, he's always finding the line in a distance race on Friday night, race number 11, so I think he will be certainly right in the mix. And then, of course, well boxed Thomas William. He's a big, large dog. He does like to use a bit of the track, and I think box 8 will suit him to swoop around them there at the Manawatu.
It certainly will. I've shortened things down a little bit this week. I tipped out 10 last week and we got half of them home. Maiden No More, I think Tuff's My Mum can get the job done. Finally comes up with box number 8. She sent me broke. I've lost enough on her to buy her, to be honest. So I think she can get the job done off the 8. The Downgrader Botany Wayne, and he's drawn beautifully in box number 1. We've spruiked this fella the last 3 weeks, Van Jack. We've only had the show back on 3 weeks, and each week we've had this bloke on the show. Gee, he was unlucky last week on Monday. Sorry, just gone. He jumped probably the handiest he has for, obviously for some time, because he had 13 months on the sideline. But he looked like he was going to go really close to winning when he was that handy, and he got absolutely poleaxed. The wide draw will certainly suit his style. Oskits, I think, Canala win for the Angela Turnwald team. Downgrades, comes up with box number 1, and from there I think he can get the job done. He could be at a backable each way price there as well. And the best bet for me goes around in race number 9 at the Manawatu, and Big Time Alfie. Comes up with box number 8. His last couple of placings have been okay. Didn't have a lot of luck in behind Tough Night on Monday. Luckily for me, because we had Tough Night in the bets. So Tough Night was able to get the job done. But I think if Big Time Alfie didn't get forced a bit wider by Tuffy into the turn, then he probably would have gone pretty close to winning, and I think he can get the job done. Philippa, that distance race on Friday, really good to see the Wanganui Club getting to 600. And, geez, a tidy little field there with some dogs stepping up. Corborn Taylor, we know, hits the line strong. Robin Knows Czar hits the line strong. And we know Miva Sydney's exploits over 600. So that's going to be a really solid little race to watch out for on Friday evening.
Yes, it's another one that I'm looking forward to, Andy. Funnily enough, Corborn Taylor, she was going to be my black booker. She was phenomenal last week. She was about 7th until the home bend, and she flew home for 3rd over the 520 metres, steps up to the distance, and I just left her out because it's a quality field. I do like the likes of Ellen Mack also in the field. Of course, you've got Miva Sydney, like you said, and of course, my bet, Roman Knows Czar, but yeah, she was a real black booker, so I'm looking forward to it.
If staying racing is your forte, there's a really nice staying race at Invercargill on Friday as well over the 630 metre journey there. A couple of youngsters stepping up. Tradition, who's screaming out for more ground, and we've got Little Apple there as well going against the hardened translator. Well, that's all we've got time for here on Dog Zone. Philippa, thank you very much for your input over the last couple of weeks. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Oh, I love it every time, Andy. It's been great, and of course looking forward to seeing Rosso back next week, but I just can't wait till Friday, and it's been great to be here.
Friday's going to be exceptional. The Hat-Trick Classic goes down there at Group 1 level. Race number 10 on the card. If you are in the area, get on down for some really nice racing action. But in terms of Dog Zone, we'll be back next week with more reviews and previews of greyhound racing from around the country. But until then, happy punting.
I'll be riding shotgun underneath the hot sun, feeling like someone. We got 2 in the front, 2 in the back, sailing along, and we don't look back. The mountain top that I'm dreaming of. If you need me, you know where I'll be.